There's something happening in society right now that nobody really talks about, but it's everywhere. More and more, we're seeing adult children not just walking away from their parents, but putting it all out there for the world to see. And people online are cheering them on. You've probably seen it. TikTok, Instagram, Reddit, they're all buzzing with hashtags like toxic family and no contact. Many people are sharing stories about their families, calling out toxic or abusive behavior, and talking about cutting ties. For a lot of folks, going no contact isn't just about walking away, it's something they actually feel proud about.
This idea that going no contact is like this new millennial thing is just always so funny to me. But I think that these parents forget, like, you raised us to have beliefs of putting ourselves first, of taking care of ourselves, of not letting people use and harm us. And yet when we do that and you're the one who receives the consequences of that, suddenly not okay.
They're also ready to jump on the bandwagon of the child and shame parents who don't deserve it. That's so incredibly wrong.
And there's a reason why a lot of people are going no contact with abusive parents. She blames her children for everything.
It's the fault of their narcissistic victimhood mentality kids.
If that person abused you, neglected you, treated you like would you want them to call them, or would you want them to cut them out, end that relationship?
There are definitely situations where walking away is the healthiest choice. Yet here's the thing, are we actually helping people heal or just making it easier for them to hit the eject button on their own families? Stats say about 1 in 4 adults is estranged from a parent, and experts think it's only going to get more common. So tonight, we're digging into the big question. Is this just how families work now? And if you cut someone off, is there any way to fix things later? My first guest, Laura, is a mother who says she was totally blindsided when her daughter cut her off. Then Laura went viral on TikTok as the doormat mom after sharing her story. What started as a personal heartbreak turned into a national debate. She wants to speak up for all the parents left wondering what happened.
Are you a doormat mom? Did you do everything in your power to raise incredible adult kids, only to be accused of doing nothing of the sort? You didn't do good enough? They mistreat you? You're possibly estranged? You are not alone. There are thousands of parents in the same boat. You don't have to be alone and suffer in silence because you ended up to be a doormat mom or dad.
Laura, thank you for joining us today.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Is this difficult for you to talk about?
It's not easy, but I feel like in talking about it, I'm helping other parents, so I'll do it for sure.
This was between you and your daughter, but then you went public with it. Tell me why you decided to go public.
Well, I think the initial reason was because I needed a means to cope with regards to my own estrangement and what had happened, because I had felt so betrayed by my daughter that it was hard to fathom it happening. And I suspected that this betrayal wasn't uncommon, but it was unspoken. And so I took to TikTok to see if I was right. And in fact, I was right in spades. It unleashed a tidal wave of other parents who felt the same type of betrayal, where they had been good parents, they had done everything that they could for their children and raising them, had sacrificed, had loved them, hadn't made any abnormal mistakes, weren't abusive, weren't toxic, weren't narcissistic. And their children all of a sudden turned on them in a way that was so unwarranted and so hurtful and crushing to these parents, just as it was to me.
So how long have you been estranged from your daughter?
About a year now. About a year now.
And how did this begin? Were you okay one day and not the next, or did this come out of the blue? Did you see it developing? How did this start?
No, it came completely out of the blue. So here's how it began. I received a call from my daughter where she told me that I was not allowed to attend her wedding in Australia. And this was after I had raised her by myself and gave her a childhood that most kids could have only dreamt of as a single mother and a very young widow. I had given the happy couple mine and my late husband's blessing, even though I was concerned about their marriage because they hadn't known each other for too long, had engaged in many wedding dress fittings with my daughter, had agreed to help coordinate the honeymoon, and even had agreed to hold a second celebration in the US for people who couldn't attend the wedding. None of that mattered. I received a virtual phone call one day, a video phone call saying that I couldn't attend and that I could work that out on my own, only to get another one the next week that she wanted me to help gather her paperwork together so that she could, in fact, get married in Australia. And I was so stunned and so crushed. And I didn't even know where to go for it. So I started gathering my thoughts and I went online on TikTok and I started making videos about, feeling like a doormat and thinking that would maybe rally some other parents who had experienced something like this. And a tidal wave exploded. A tidal wave of the parents exploded. And it went from TikTok to Instagram to a Facebook group to a podcast to, and now it's turning into an app. So, parents on the local level, estranged parents can meet and potentially put together support groups. So it's been a whirlwind. And it's something I would have never known about unless I experienced it. So now it's almost become a platform to help.
Clearly, you're not alone. You hit a nerve. A lot of people.
100%. I've hit a nerve, and it's something that was, I guess, hovering in silence because there is shame attached to estrangement between parents and children, and parents are always getting the blame for it, when in fact, today, that isn't always the case. It definitely is not always the case.
Hey, Dr. Phil here. Your savings are at risk. With the economy on shaky ground, the dollar losing value, and a $2 trillion deficit, things could spiral. Don't wait for the worst. Take control of your financial future now. I trust Preserve Gold to safeguard my accounts, and I urge you to do the same. They're the only precious metals company I recommend. What are you going to do to protect what's yours? Claim your special offer and learn how to reinforce your financial future. Visit drphilgold.com to get your free precious metals guide from Preserve Gold. With gold prices recently breaking records and analysts predicting this trend to continue through 2025, you cannot afford to wait. As a bonus, you can get up to $15,000 with a qualified purchase from Preserve Gold. So don't wait. Visit drphilgold.com today. Well, that was Kristen opening up on social media about cutting ties with her mother 7 years ago. As a licensed therapist, she says it's not about punishing anyone, it's really about protecting yourself. And I'm going to get to Kristen in 1 second, and I want her to listen to the question I have for Laura and Laura's answer, because I want these two to interact. And Laura, the question I have for you is, make your daughter's argument. If you have to stand in her shoes and make sense of her position, as though you were arguing it to a jury, what would be the most logical reason you think she would cut you out of her life? What would be, and you don't set up a paper tiger and tear it down, what would be the most logical reason you could come up with for her cutting you out of her life?
I honestly could not give you a logical reason, because she's not only cut me out, but she's cut her entire family out.
Okay, but that's not answering the question. If you're going to answer the question, if you had to make an argument, what would the argument be?
She just wanted an entirely new beginning without me in her life.
And why?
I couldn't answer that, Dr. Phil. I don't know.
If that's your answer, that's your answer. Now, Kristen, you have an answer for why you cut your mother out of your life. You said you lived with this for 25 years, and you say that your mother disappeared on you in the first grade, the third grade. She was gone for a year. She didn't do things that mothers do when they grow up, and enough's enough and too much is too much. And it just got to a point that you're better off without than with your mother in your life, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And did you decide that there's no patching this up? There's no reason that the cost is too high, that she's not reliable? What was your decision?
Yeah, my decision, came after having my son and really realizing like I wouldn't do the things that she did to my child, and really coming to that decision that I couldn't have her in my life. And I get that question a lot of like, could our relationship be patched up? And the answer is I really don't know, because I've never gotten to that point where we have been in a place where that could happen. I've been no contact now for 7 years, and we have not exchanged any interaction in that time. I don't know what I would do if my mom would show up or call me at this point. There are things that would have to happen, boundaries that would have to be addressed, expectations, accountability for the things that she put me through throughout our entire life. And the ability to sit in that and have a discussion would just be the starting point for that for us. Like, that's the starting line.
And do you think she would have an inability to own that, acknowledge that, or perform at a different level?
Yeah, I do think she does struggle, and that's a place that I've held empathy for her entire life and my entire life. I understand that my mom, she's a human. She was not a perfect parent, and I didn't expect her to be a perfect parent. What I expected was to be loved and kept safe. And at this point, I was asking, when we went no contact, I was asking for bare minimum. I was asking for a phone call a month and to remember birthdays, and I wasn't getting those things. And so for those small things to not be met, that would, for me, is the bare minimum for our relationship.
And you heard me asking Laura, and this is not your mom, and there is no evidence, no history whatsoever that Laura has mimicked your mother's history in any way whatsoever. She didn't disappear. There's evidence that she had a communicative home. She raised children as a single mother, having lost her husband. And no one challenges that whatsoever. But when I ask her, what argument do you think your daughter would offer? She comes up with zero. And nobody, I've never met anybody that has zero ownership in a relationship and its problems. As a therapist and as an estranged daughter, what do you think about her having zero ability to offer any logical explanation as to why her daughter would have a problem with her?
I don't know their situation. I don't know their relationship in depth, as you said. I think that a lot of times as children who've gone no contact, these are things that we have stated, but sometimes don't align with our parents' view of what might be toxic or abusive or things like that. When I came to my mother about those things, she didn't view them as toxic, even though the rest of the world and textbooks would view them as toxic. And so I think sometimes our viewpoints really impact how we view our own behaviors.
Do you think that estrangement is on the upswing? Do you think this is a trend among millennials and Gen Z that we weren't seeing in generations past? Or do you think these generations are just finding the voice?
I think it's a combination. I wouldn't put it, I would say it was a trend, but not in the trend like skinny jeans are. It is a trend because it is happening more. And I think that is because social media is allowing access to these conversations and this ability to say, oh, this is something that's okay to do when I am harmed. And as far as like this generational piece, this is a thing that happened within my family. My mother didn't speak to my grandmother. I have an aunt that I've never met because she was estranged in our family. And so this isn't just millennials and Gen Zs that are happening. It's just we're the ones who are on social media more often talking about it.
But there's a generational legacy in your family. And that was not the case with you, Laura. This wasn't a generational thing in your family.
No, and let me point out one thing. It wasn't that my daughter went estranged from me. I chose to take the step back, and she came forward and wanted something more from me to give. And when I set that boundary, that's when she went full no contact. So it wasn't as if I had all of a sudden magically became someone I wasn't. She was more than willing to continue to take from me. And I said, no more. So if you want to say that that's the one reason, I'd say that's the one reason I set down a boundary. I do think social media is pushing this along. I think there's a societal conditioning that's happening. I think there are some, there are some bad therapists that are adding to it too. There are some really good therapists that are helping to cure it, but there's a lot of bad therapists that are helping it along too. So, and certainly I don't know the other guests, what her mother did, in her life. And if she truly was someone that couldn't even, send a birthday wish, well, that definitely is not me, because I would have sent a whole basket of everything. I can't speak to that, but I do know there are many good parents out there that are suffering in a way that they don't deserve to suffer, because they're being lumped into a category that they don't deserve to be in.
You've heard me talk about Jase Medical. If not, listen up, because they're doing incredible work in medical preparedness. And today, I've got two major updates to share. First up, the ivermectin use case. You've probably seen the headlines calling it a wonder drug. The scientist who discovered it even won a Nobel Prize, and now Jase is offering a 30-day supply at the best price you'll find anywhere. Next, the upgraded Jase case, an emergency supply of antibiotics delivered to your door. They've doubled the number of medications to 10 at just $20 more. And now, the most comprehensive and affordable kit available. Get it before you need it. Don't wait, order today. Visit jase.com and use code PHIL at checkout for a special discount. That's jase.com, code PHIL. April says she knows exactly how painful it is to be shut out by her child because she's going through it right now. Her adult daughter cut ties with her a year ago, and on top of that, April isn't speaking to her own mom, Karen. Both are joining us tonight. Karen, April, it's been 30 years that you two have really had problems between each other. You've tried along the way. Even a year ago, you've had contact and talked to each other, but this just hasn't worked out. It's been 30 years since there's been peace and harmony between the two of you. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, I agree.
Okay, and do you even remember how it started, or does it even matter now?
I would say it doesn't really matter.
What prompted you to go no contact with your mom? Was it you that went no contact?
It is.
Okay, and do you remember, and does it matter today?
It does matter just because of how painful it is. I don't like to be like that to my mother because she's my mother.
And does it matter because it's continued happening, or was it a one-time thing?
It matters because it's gone on since my childhood.
Okay. And how would you describe it? And then I'm going to let your mother respond.
As a young child, I was constantly told that I would never amount to anything, that I only thought of myself, that I was selfish, that all I wanted was a pity party and I needed mental help. Those words are hurtful.
Karen, is that true?
No, that's not true. I never told her she had a mental problem. I never said those things, April.
You never said any of those things.
No, I did not.
Well, does she have a mental problem then? Because if she's saying that, she must be delusional. Is she hearing voices? Why is she saying that?
I have no idea, but I never told her she was anything that she said.
Okay, why would she have this problem then?
I don't know.
You just have no idea.
I have no idea.
None. If there was one thing you could change, Karen, that you think Mike could heal this relationship, what would it be?
That we could all try to get along together.
If you were going to ask her to forgive you for something, what would it be?
If she would forgive me for, I love her. I really do.
If you were going to ask her to forgive you for something, what would it be?
I have no idea.
You have no way to express any transgression across 30 years that you would say, look, I shouldn't have been this way, shouldn't have done this. Not one thing you can think of that you would ask for forgiveness of.
Well, I shouldn't have done the things that I did, but I don't even remember what I did to her, but I hope and pray that she would forgive me.
Did you have physical fights with your daughter?
No, she had physical fights with me.
You know, one of the big things that is really important in relationships and relationship management is for the people in the relationship to have insight to what they contribute. When you're in a relationship, you either contribute to it or you contaminate it. And if you have zero insight to how you may have contaminated a relationship, it's really hard to affect change. And when you say, I can't think of a single thing, how about you, April? Is there anything you can think of that you would ask forgiveness for or that you would change in your relationship that might start a healing process?
I would ask for her to stop calling me the names. It took away from my self-worth as a child. I was one of those shy, quiet girls that sat in the back and was in a shell. I felt alone. I didn't have a mother who really, truly loved me. She says she loves me, but she was never there to support me. She never interacted with me. She would always cut me down, tell me that I needed to get a better job, that I was worthless, that why can't I be like my siblings? She had more friends than I did, etc.